depression is as serious as cancer or, a serious illness because people take their lives.
We had no words. I couldn't have gone and told my parents, "I'm sad." They wouldn't know what that meant. "Well, just be happy." I didn't even know how to name it, and I was a woman, like, you have to accomplish things, you have to get things done, so you just powered through it.
I found my bottom. I hit my bottom. And I was ready to leave this place. I felt like there was no way out. And I was ready to go. I had it planned out.
Welcome to Chino y Chicano. I'm Enrique Cerna. Mental health touches nearly every family in America. More than 1 in 5 adults lives with a mental illness. 1 in 5 has been diagnosed with depression at some point. And nearly 1 in 3 high school students report struggling with their mental health. Every 11 minutes, someone in America dies by suicide, and nearly 80% of those deaths are men. These aren't just statistics, they're our family members, our friends, neighbors, and coworkers. I'm not just interested in these numbers because I've lived a part of this story myself. I've battled depression, and I know how isolating it can feel. Two of my good friends, Roberta Romero, executive producer of King 5 News Facing Race, and Randy Ng, producer, photographer, and editor at the Seattle channel, also know that feeling because they've lived it. We talked recently about our mental health struggles. Roberta Romero and Randy Ng, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me and to talk about something that I think all three of us have dealt with at some time. Unfortunately, I've been dealing with it lately. Over the past month, I've had a depressive episode and struggled quite a bit. So I actually was diagnosed with depression when I was 34 years old. But I'm pretty sure I probably had depressive episodes when I was in high school and definitely in college. And but it was when I was 34 that I really hit the wall and just really had a breakdown. And the toughest part of that for me was I got caught up in the stigma about it all, and I didn't want anybody to know, and I was really struggling. And at work, I remember sometimes a couple of my supervisors being saying to me, "What's your problem? Why you just seem like you're down all the time, or you've got no energy, and how come?" I was doing my work, but it was like, you could tell I kind of wasn't always there, and I was afraid to tell them. I was really afraid to tell them. Um, how about you guys? How did this hit your life? Bert, why don't you start?
I think, first of all, I had no idea how to name it. There were only 2 feelings that I thought of, like, and one of them was to be happy at all costs. So, always looking for happy. If you're not happy, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you happy? What's going on? So, faking it and pretending I'm happy, and then anger. There was, like, no different.
Yeah.
Those are the only 2 emotions that I knew how to recognize. And when I think about depression, you know, and the shame of it, I think about culturally, to go to someone and say, even at the age of 34, to say, "Hey, I have some mental health issues." We had no words.
Right.
I couldn't have gone and told my parents, "I'm sad." They wouldn't know what that meant. "Well, just be happy." I didn't even know how to name it, and I was a woman, like, you have to accomplish things, you have to get things done, so you just powered through it,
Yeah.
white knuckling. Ugh, it was exhausting.
Yeah. Randy?
You know, at least Bird got to name it.
Mm.
In my culture, the way I was raised, if you had any problem, you just keep it to yourself. Don't be a
Mhm.
burden to anyone else. Don't make your problem somebody else's problem. If you got a problem, figure it out for yourself. So I pretty much had to suck it in all my entire life. It's just like, oh, I'm sad. Okay, I'm not going to burden anyone. I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to keep it to myself, and it'll go away. The truth is, it never goes away, right? It just stays with you. It just goes deeper and deeper. It builds, it builds, it builds. But I mean, for my parents, and I don't blame my parents. How about this? I blame my grandparents because they gave my parents the toolbox for what they used for me.
Yeah.
Um, I was given no tools to cope. I was given no tools
Mhm.
to, um, just deal with problems. And took me a long time to stop blaming my parents, but at the same time, you know, I wanted so much more from them than they ever gave.
Yeah. I think my parents, well, actually, I was 28. I think it was when my mother died suddenly, 28, 29.
Mm.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I was very, I was a mama's boy. I was the youngest in the family. Um, and my mother was very much in our lives as far as checking on us all the time. And she died suddenly, and hit me just hard. And I made a mistake at that time because I went to my primary care physician. He said, "Well, I think you might be dealing with a little bit of depression. I want you to see this psychiatrist." And I was afraid and embarrassed. But culturally, we still have these issues of, uh, breaking down barriers within our own families and communities about this, and that's tough. I know that among Latinos, I think all cultures, there's
Mm.
still that sense of like a sense of weakness, that is a huge challenge.
Mhm.
And I think people have to realize then depression is as serious as cancer or, a serious illness because people take their lives. I have had good friends that have committed suicide that I
Yeah.
didn't even know they had an issue, you know, that it's just like you see them one day and they seem fine. And then you get a call from somebody that said they took their life. And boy, uh, now I've been at that point of where I seriously thought about it. Um, but I guess I'm just too chicken, fortunately. But I did think about it. I did think about it because I just was like at the point of like, man, I am just rock bottom here. And in fact, I had a conversation last night with a friend of mine, just calling to check on me. And yeah, and I called and told him, I left him a message this morning, just telling him how much I appreciated that he checked in on me, which I think is a very, very important thing. Because I want to point out that this guy, Randy Ing, has checked in on me a lot. And because I've had some real issues over the past year and a half. And, just that, Randy, I appreciate that so much that you've been there for me. So, yeah.
I'll add in my story. So it's been about 10 years. Um, I found my bottom. I hit my bottom, and I was ready to leave this place. I felt like there was no way out, and I was ready to go. I had it planned out, and I gave myself one phone call, thinking that she would never pick up the phone, but she did. And Roberta talked me down for the next 3 hours.
Wow.
But I was ready to leave. It was. I was in a very, very, very dark place, and you know, um, I remember later Roberta's husband Frank said, "If you're calling Bert, that means you didn't want to
Mhm.
die." Because it's you. The world has never met Roberta, but she was such a bright light, and she kept on reminding me, "What about your kids? What about your family? There are people who need you. And sometimes you need to hear that. When you're spiraling, you don't realize that if you are truly thinking about taking your own life, it's a very selfish act, and it really
Yeah.
hurts the people who are left behind. And when you don't have that support group, when you don't have people around you reminding you how important you are, it's easy to spiral. I'm so very grateful for Roberta because I couldn't be here. She didn't answer the phone. And she has been a very special friend for me. And so, I'm kind of passing the torch, Enrique. I feel like Roberta taught me, gives me some more tools, to help
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
people who I can see who are struggling. I think
Yeah.
it's important for us to step up and not just pretend like, oh, they're fine, or there are very subtle cues that we can all see.
Yeah.
we have a chance to make a difference if we choose to step forward.
Yeah. When you called that one time, and I was really bad. Boy. I don't know how long we talked, but uh, by the end of it, you had me laughing. So, uh, but it made a huge difference.
You are very necessary, Enrique. You are a good man and a good friend. And
It's tough because when you're dealing with this stuff, um, you don't feel that.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. So, yeah. So, Bert, when Randy called you, tell me about that as I gather myself here.
I think first what I really think is important for me to acknowledge is I am deeply grateful for the both of you for sharing this story. I think one of the things for me that is lacking or the disconnect is intimacy and vulnerability. And those are words that you would never know who I was. I had a very thick mask. I did not want you to know how vulnerable I was, and I certainly didn't want to be intimate. That's a connection that scared me for some reason. I don't know why, because then you'd see the real me and you wouldn't like me. There's just a lot of stuff around it. So when you two men of color, are willing to share these intimate moments, that's what changes the world. That's why our kids or the next generation, they'll be going back, Randy, getting back to your grandparents. They won't blame you, Grandpa, if you ever become one, because you broke the cycle. Both you and Enrique broke the cycle. That's the key. And it is about talking about it. There's that saying, because my postpartum depression led me to alcoholism, which led me to recovery, but you're as sick as your secrets, and we keep this stuff so buried in. So it's the connection. Connection is the key to recovery. And that the phone call. And, when Randy called me, and again, exactly what you said, Enrique. What? You're sad? Yeah, I mean, I consider Randy a brother. We are connected in a way that I don't even know how to explain, even though we were raised in different households. He is my brother by choice. And I thought I knew him inside and out, and so when he called me and told me this, it stunned me. You? What? Because we keep it so tightly wound down. So, you know, I've learned how, and I think we all should learn the language around this, because I used to think if you thought someone was thinking about suicide, don't bring it up because then you'll put the idea in their head. Guess what? The idea is already in their head.
Right.
You ask them about it because then it cracks it open. So when Randy called and he told me this, I don't remember much of the conversation other than, "You're so precious. You're so important. Please know that. Let me love you until you can love yourself. Because I love you, man. I love you. I need you." And sometimes you just need to hear that. Like, you don't want to put the burden of, like, you have to live because of me,
Right.
but
Right.
I need you. I need you. My life, your children need you. Your family needs you. We need you. This community needs you. Enrique, I think about all of that you've contributed. Yes, your family and your children, but I think of you have moved the needle for people of color. When the murder of George Floyd happened and there were no podcasts like this, there was nobody talking about this. What if we didn't have you?
Mhm.
I mean, let's look at that. The ripple in the pond, that little rock in the water, and now look at where it's going. You don't know who's going to hear this and who's going to hear that story that you just shared.
Yeah.
This is powerful. This is what keeps me alive and keeps me going,
Yeah.
you know?
So,
Thank you.
well, thank you. Was there anything in particular, Randy, that Bert said that really kind of talked you down, or was it just that she just kept you on the phone so long? Yeah, because we know Bert can talk and have stories.
I think it was just the the fact that she answered and acknowledged me. I think was all that I needed. I think
Just think if she hadn't answered the phone.
Mm.
I was ready to go. I was ready to go. I was done. I was ready to
And why her?
go. Partly because we really had a strong connection. We worked the overnight morning shift for what, almost 5, 6, 7 years, a long time. And when you're in news and you have a live shot at 6 and 6:30 and 7, 7:30 and 8, there's a lot of talking that happens in between. I think Bert, you probably already started your recovery
Mhm.
around that time, so
Oh,
I kind of knew that um you had walked through the fire
Mhm.
in some way. And so I felt like, okay, if there's anyone who can understand me, it might be Bert.
Mm.
And so I tried Bert. And you weren't even in my speed dial. I had to like search for your number.
gosh.
It
Jeez.
was it was
Was she the only one you called?
she was the only one I called.
Oh my God.
The only one I called. Yeah. And I was in a relationship at the time. I was divorced, but I was in a relationship. Didn't even think about my kids. It was, my circle was very, very small. I didn't
Mm.
have anyone to reach out, and nor did I have the tools, like we were talking about, to say I am hurting in a really bad way.
Getting to the stigma, I'm very open about my alcoholism. Again, if we're
Yeah.
not
Yes, you
talking
are.
about it, if we're not talking about this is what recovery looks like, this is island alcoholic. If we don't start talking about it, first of all, we're losing a generation. And trust me, in my day, there was no such thing as fentanyl or the THC and the levels of
Right.
marijuana right now. Unbelievable. So if we're not talking about this, we're never going to be able to get well. And alcohol wasn't my problem. My head was my problem. My depression and anxiety and low self-esteem were my problem. Alcohol was my symptom and also the only thing that I could use to self-medicate. And I had to learn that. I had to learn that. It took me a long time. And again, the shame and stigma of being a woman of color, and then you're an alcoholic. So I let people know so that if they have to talk to, I'm here. I'm here to talk. And I think the other key, Enrique, and I think Randy, I think is something that we're really good at, partly because of our business. I do, and I'm not. This isn't like, oh, humble brag, but we know how to listen. We do know
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
listen. Yes, we're talkers, but we also know how to listen. And I don't think people listen very much.
I think sometimes within some families, um, conflict avoidance is big.
Mm.
And so you you don't deal with those issues. So later in life, you become kind of cold or you lack empathy. And of course, being a Latino in my family, that was not the case at all because, we wore our emotions on our sleeve. I mean, I do. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I can be quite a quiet person as well. And I've had people say, oh, you're so quiet and all of this. I go, you don't know me that well, really. Because, I do wear my emotions. But that thing about wanting to hide it is there. And I tell people that I'm a real pro at hiding the depression because I am. I've learned how to do that. Um, my son and my daughter-in-law, who've been worried about me,
Mm.
called and left messages and texted, and I didn't pick up, which is very odd for me. So I woke up at 1 p.m. to pounding. And so I thought it was somebody at the front door. Opened the door, nobody's there. I turn around, I look through my living room window and my patio, and there's my son.
Mm.
And he's had been pounding on the window, and he was upset. And he's like, what the hell? Why haven't you been answering? And, we've been calling all morning. And he was pretty upset with me. And
Mm.
then I sat him down, and he knew I'd been struggling. And so we talked more about it. And I realized through this how many good friends I have, but also how my son and his wife have just, been there for me too. And that is a pretty special thing. So when you think and you're so low, you got to remember that who you would hurt if you took your life. My sister would really be pissed at me. And then I have 3 grandkids. you know, twins, almost 2-year-old twins and a 4-year-old. I can't do that because I got them. And every time I think real low, I gotta think of them. Not a good
Enrique,
deal. Yeah.
how did you get help? And Randy, how did you get help? I think that, we always talk about the problem, but then what's the next step?
Yeah. I was looking for answers because I'd wake up every morning at that time hoping, instead of this dark cloud, I'd hope there'd be sunshine. And, it wasn't happening. Of course, I was impatient because I wanted it to happen right away. And that isn't the case. It takes time with this sometimes. You're lucky if you get a medication that pops you right away. And none of that ever happened with me. It was always something that needed to happen. I actually had a breakdown and then with that found medication that helped me. I think anytime you go to therapy, if you're looking for a quick fix, you're in the wrong place
Mhm.
because all of us have to unpack our issues. I mean, I have therapy once a week and sometimes twice because I need it. So well, the biggest thing is started listening to my doctors instead of ignoring them, and which we tend to do, and particularly men tend to do.
Mhm.
But it's tougher now, I think, because even to get doctor's appointments at times, it's more difficult. So it's a combination, I think, of someone's own motivation, but also maybe like friends like this saying, "Hey, you don't look good," or "What's going on?" and talking and making those connections because it's really true that having those friendships really work. But I don't think there's any one quick fix on this whole thing. Randy, do you?
No, to circle back to Bert's prompt, I was actually already in therapy, but the process of unpeeling the onion actually started um, revealing a lot of things that I felt were irreparable, right? That it's not fixable. I can't move forward because of this stuff. And and that's when I hit my bottom. And you talk about going to therapy. Yes, going to therapy is really important, but it's only as good as what you give them,
Yeah.
right? And in my first marriage, I was having problems in my first marriage, and so I went to a therapist, and I just gave all surface level stuff, nothing. And so the therapist goes, "Oh, I think she was bored, but she goes, 'You're good. You're all fixed.'" And I'm like, "Eh, okay." And I'm like, "Yay, I'm great now." But really, who am I kidding? I was still a mess. But I think the key is that you have to go because you want to get better.
Right.
And you know, uh, my wife Ria and I have this kind of roller coaster ride, and at one of the low points, she said, "You need to get some help." And the words that stuck with me is that I can't go with you on that journey. That is your journey, and you need to figure things out. And I think for me, that was the real catalyst to actually take mental health seriously. Because again, like I said, it's just like coasting. I was just like, I just tell them what they think they want to hear. I tell them what I want to hear, or what I think they want to hear, and but not really give anything of myself that would make me, as you say, feel vulnerable or feel scared or actually reveal the truth that I'm ashamed of something. Um, it's not until you actually show up with some real honesty that you can make any progress. Until you're ready to face it, any sort of therapy is going to be pretty useless.
Yeah.
I think that, you really hit it because it's what you put into it that you're going to get out of it. And I did the same thing that you did when I first started going. I was not honest at all. I was
Right.
like, I'm not going to tell you all about me, and then I'm not going to do that, and I don't want to be in here very long, even though I needed the help. But it really is until you start to open up about yourself and admit, your shortcomings or the things that have happened to you
Mhm.
that you're really embarrassed about. and so that you can kind of tackle this stuff because it's all tied together. Bert, what's helped you?
For sure, going to treatment for alcoholism helped me because it taught me so much. And I wanted to touch on that just a bit because you had mentioned it earlier, Enrique, about getting help, like the depression, the stigma and the shame around it. If we had cancer, we would have had a team of doctors. I'd have had casseroles brought to my home. Someone would have been willing to take care of my kids. Not only did I get zero support, I had to find it myself. It's not like, oh, you have depression. Well, you better go figure it on your own.
Yeah.
But I'm depressed.
Yeah.
I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And now I'm supposed to go and look and is this there medication? Nobody's there to hold your hand to walk you through the steps. So I there's sort of this two thing, like especially when Randy talked about you have to want it. That is true. You have to want it, but you also still need somebody to hold your hand a little bit to help you do it. Like who do I call? How do I get this going? Even like if somebody like, okay, what's your insurance like? I'm like, I'm out. If I have to fill out insurance, like even that would have been like, I have to fill out insurance. But that would overwhelm me, and especially if I'm depressed or alcoholic. I don't know how to do this. So I really think it's important that we can help each other or go to a person that can help you navigate so that you can get through it. Nobody's talking about those steps. Like, okay, I need help. Okay, now what? So it's just really a lot out there for people to navigate while they're sick.
Right. I feel very fortunate. I have Medicare.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie to you. When you said that you were going once or twice a week, I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
Enrique's rich. I can't afford that.
No.
Honestly, but that's where it's come to us. That's, I can't afford it. So I'm not going to go to treatment either or therapy. I mean, there's a lot of barriers, but there is help. There are ways to do it if you're willing to at least try. And so I guess that's what I'd say. And also there's 2 steps when you ask for help. There are 2 steps. You have to ask for help. And then there's the most important part is you have to accept the help. Yeah. Now you have to be a participant in it. I can't fix it for you. You now have to accept it and you now have to do the work. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. I felt like I was hanging off the edge of a cliff. I'm just hanging there. I'm hanging there. And if I let go, if I stop drinking, if I let go, I'm going to fall forever. And then I'm going to smash into a million pieces. I'm so tired and I'm hanging and I finally let go. And I dropped an inch. And then I looked around and there's Enrique and there's Randy. What I built in my head of what the help was going to be was so much worse and so much scarier than what it really is.
Okay, I just want you two to know that you're on my speed dial.
Yay! For enchiladas, I hope.
There you go. Yeah, that'll be afterwards, so we'll do that. Hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for opening up and just talking about this. And I'd like to have more conversations because I think it's important. And particularly, I think for our communities to see and hopefully hear our stories and to realize you're not alone and that if you need help, that, reach out. It's not easy. It's hard, but if we hopefully in talking about this can maybe inspire or motivate others to say, hey, I need some help, or I'm here to help you. I'm here to listen. I hope we can just do a little bit of that. And so let's make sure we do that. So Bert, send me any links to folks that you think we need to connect to. Randy, you too, if you have any. And again, I just want to thank you guys. And Randy, you're my bro, because thank you for being there for me. And Bert, same thing. You're not my bro, but you're my
Yes.
All right.
Trying to do baby heart.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much.